key thing that you think stands out about Mr. Ramos's legacy?
Well, as in all presidents, it's also always a question of a mixed bag, right? And Ramos has had his fair share of detractors. They have pointed out that his role at the upper echelons of the security establishment during the Marcos dictatorship. More recently, of course, he endorsed former Filipino President Rodrigo Duterte, an authoritarian populist, during the 2016 elections. Many people also pointed out that his aggressive privatization of state-owned enterprises in the 1990s actually helped concentrate economic resources in the hands of few family conglomerates. So there are a lot of reasons for people to question whether, his legacy was perfect. But at the same time, in many ways, he has been the most effective and I think in many ways the most competent president we have had, at least in the past half a century. People forget that his election in 1992 essentially prevented the collapse of the Philippine democratic regime. Really, 1992 was the darkest hour for Philippine democracy. Previous President Corazon Aquino had just survived half a dozen coups d'etats. There were insurgencies all over the country. And as much as people are shocked by the return of Marcos this year, let's not forget that in 1992, former First Lady Imelda Marcos and former Marcos crony Daniel Cuanco got almost a third of the vote. So Ramos, by winning that presidency and stabilizing the country, gave democracy a chance.
You alluded, Mr. Hederian, to some of the more controversial parts of the time when he was in politics, in political life. And I wonder whether you think, people in the Philippines are able to sort of forgive him for his role in martial law, for instance. Thousands were jailed, thousands died. Do young Filipinos today remember that about him, or do they remember a sort of different figure?
Well, I think if there's something that makes Ramos very special, aside from his swagger, workaholic, a lifestyle, I mean, he was fully dedicated to his craft, is also his redemptive politics. I mean, as your presenter mentioned a while ago, as reporter mentioned, yes, he was part of the Marcos regime, but his defection from that regime paved the way for the 1986 People Power. Had he not defected from the Marcos regime, together with then Defense Minister Enrile, who, by the way, is now the legal advisor of Marcos Jr., had they not defected, I don't think the People Power would have happened, at least in 1986. At the same time, even on Duterte, even though he endorsed Duterte in 2016, few years later, he criticized Duterte's decision to bury the remains of Marcos in the Cemetery of National Heroes. He questions his anti-Western tirades, calling for a more interdependent foreign policy. He questioned extrajudicial killings and the violent ways by which Duterte conducted his drug war. So in fairness, if there's something that makes Ramos special, is that redemptive element of his legacy and his ability to have the humility and wisdom to realize that he may have made certain mistakes and now he has to turn on his allies who are increasingly become autocratic.
Richard Hederian there from Manila. Thank you. Fascinating discussion on Fidel Ramos's legacy.